Home Affairs Minister Dr. Motsoaledi confirming late yesterday that he's now extending the Zimbabwean Exemption Permit until the end of the year. In other words, Zimbabweans living here under the permit can now stay until the end of the year. The Minister says he's made this decision because there's now a very high number of Zimbabweans who are applying to remain here under other permits and schemes, and he wants to deal with those applications. The ZEP was first going to end at the end of December last year, then was extended until the end of this month, and then last night's announcement that it's extended again until December. Dr. Motsoaledi is the Minister of Home Affairs. He joins us now. Minister, good afternoon and thank you for your time. It's the second extension of the ZEP. You say you're getting a very large number of applications to remain here under other permits. Are you surprised by how many applications you're now getting?
Indeed, Stephen, from the beginning of May until now, the applications have increased dramatically to between 1,000 and 1,500 per day. In other words, every single day, we receive between 1,000 and 1,500 applications. And this has just started in May, the last month before the expiry of the extension.
Of the applications that you're getting, and it must be a huge amount of paperwork, Minister, but of the applications that you're getting, how many people are you allowing to stay? Are you making decisions already? Is it a relatively high proportion or is it a relatively low proportion of people?
There are two types of applications, Stephen, which I've mentioned before, but let me repeat again for clarity's sake. Firstly, under normal conditions, when you tell people to apply for regular visas, when people apply for a general work visa, generally, whether we are talking of ZEP or any other person, they are supposed to go to the Department of Labor and prove that the work for which they are going to be employed cannot be done by any South Africans. When the Department of Labor has satisfied itself, it gives you a certificate which you bring to Home Affairs and apply for a general work visa. Now, the first application was that since they are already here, let us waiver that. But they have to apply to the minister to waiver that need or requirement to go to the Department of Labor. Secondly, there are visas which you cannot apply for while you are inside the country if you are not a South African. You have to apply for them from country of origin. I also invited them to apply for a waiver so that they can apply for inside the country. So me, at my level, I'm approving waivers. And as I said, they're arriving in thousands per day. Then, after the waiver is then that you choose the type of visa you want to apply for. And then a team of experts, including the DG, will have to work on them. And once they recommend to the DG must approve. Those ones are never signed by me. At any rate, Stephen, I've never signed any approval for any visa. It's always done by the DG in terms of the Act. My job is just to give them waivers, which is what I'm doing.
Okay, so I appreciate the clarity. That's very helpful. Thank you. Let me try and put the question in another way. Do you think that, because I think it's 190,000, nearly 200,000 people living here under the Zimbabwean Exemption Permit, there's some estimates that with their families, children, etc., maybe this affects 1 million people, but that's also an estimate. I don't think that's a hard and fast figure. So of the 200,000 people living here under the Zimbabwean Exemption Permit now, once all of this is finished, do you think almost all of them are going to have to return home, or do you think many of them will be able to stay?
Stephen, firstly, let me correct. Ours is not a guesswork. We had 178,000 files. When the extension was given in 2017, there were 178,000 people. And we checked this from the files. It's not a guesswork. It's not an estimate. Because you may remember that when people applied for a ZEP, there were 3 conditions. Firstly, that you must prove that even if you are in South Africa illegally, but you do have a job. Secondly, even if you don't have any documents, somehow you were able to gain space in an institution of learning, you can apply for a ZEP. Thirdly, if you can give a proof that you are engaged in a legitimate business, those were the conditions. And then after those conditions, you still have to give us a police clearance from Zimbabwe. So this means you know the exact number of people who qualified under that. Now, having said so, when we stopped extending as it was done since 2009, we never said we want anybody to go away from South Africa. We just said we don't want anybody to stay here under a temporary special permit. We want them to apply for regular visas like any other person who sojourns in South Africa from any other country. Naturally, if you don't qualify for a visa or a permit that you apply for, then you cannot stay. But the aim was not that, no, we want so many people to go away. The aim was that they must apply for regular visas like all the other people from all over the world who sojourn in South Africa using those regular visas.
Okay. Do you expect this to be the last extension?
Well, as you can see, Stephen, we were intending the one in June to be the last, but we don't control the behaviors of people. And when they start applying in large numbers last minute, I can't just unreasonably say, oh, you waited deliberately for the last minute and say, no, we are no longer extending. We extended this one as a sort of a force majeure, whereby a large number of people who were intending not to apply suddenly saw they need to apply. And we must look into their applications rather than just say, no, the time has passed. And so we're being reasonable in other ways by putting this extension.
Okay. I mean, I fully accept that. There's also an election in Zimbabwe we now know in August. And one of the consequences of your decision is that it would mean that Zimbabweans living here under the ZEP will be able to go to Zimbabwe to vote and then come back to South Africa if they choose to do that. Was that a factor, the timing of the election in Zimbabwe? I mean, from what you say, it wasn't a factor, but I just wanted to ask. Was it a factor at all?
No, Stephen. That sounds like a conspiracy. Zimbabweans have always been going home, Stephen. And I've rejected completely the notion that is being spread around that they know no other home. They've been here for 10 years and they know no other home. Because we do have their records. Remember, we've got a movement control system. Zimbabweans go home anytime they want, especially during Christmas, Good Friday, and even during weekends. They go and come. The declaration we issued, the directive we issued today was just that when they start doing that, which they've been doing, nobody must stop them at the borders. It has got absolutely nothing to do with the elections. Okay. The extensions which we did last year, what will you have it at any? It was timed for. So that's why I'm laughing and saying,
no, sure.
It sounds like a conspiracy theory.
No, sure. There's some things that, we have to ask. There have been several applications from different court groups, and they want to overturn the decision to end the Zimbabwean Exemption Permit. And we still don't have a ruling. And there are a couple of interesting technicalities to it. And there was a bit of an argument as to whether it was a cabinet decision to end the Zimbabwean Exemption Permit or whether it was your decision as the Minister of Home Affairs. It could be both of your decisions, of course. It's your decision to grant the exemption. So does that mean this is only your decision to end the Zimbabwean Exemption Permit, or is that a cabinet decision?
No, it's my decision, Stephen, and we have said so many times. Because the Act clearly says it's the minister who has got the power to do that. But because of the politics behind it, I went to the cabinet for support after taking the decision. But the decision is by a Minister of Home Affairs in terms of the Immigration Act. The cabinet is not authorized or empowered to take a decision as a cabinet. So I went to inform them and get political support from them. Okay.
And is there a chance, do you think? I mean, we don't know what the court ruling will be, and it's taken several months. It must be quite frustrating for you, and I think for everyone concerned, because I thought that maybe this would be quite a quick decision because it's such a sort of urgent issue. Anyway, we'll wait for the court. Are you worried about that case? Are you worried that you might lose that case at all?
Well, it's interesting, Stephen. You said people have gone to court to stop the ZEP. But I'm also not going to court. But I said it mustn't continue. People must be on regular visas. So more or less in that regard, that the ZEP must not continue. I'm on the same path with them. It's only that we are using different paths or different methods. Well, Stephen, we are a constitutional democracy. Every time there's a court case, and by the way, we defended this case But every time you defend the case, you take into consideration the fact that you may win or you may lose. Some cases we win, others we lose, and we are really prepared for that.
Okay. And then you made the point that you're getting 1,000 applications a day. So, you know, after 170 days or so, everyone who's here under the ZEP should have applied. Do you think you'll be able to deal with all of that by the end of December? As I say, it's an immense amount of paperwork. I prefer to do my job than to work in Home Affairs at the moment.
The waivers is not really a lot of work. I'm the only one who signed them. The others, the visas, is a lot of work, and we have put together a large team of people who have got outside experts to help the department, Stephen. But you may remember that early this year, I announced that in the permitting sector, that's where they are issuing visas. We have hired 18 extra lawyers who came on the 1st of March, and we have given them special training for the whole year, and they have started the work in April. So we are actually fortifying the number of people who must deal with these visas. And we are quite confident that we will be able to afford. If people applied earlier, by the way, we will have done that. The reason that we are extending now is simply that people were not applying because some of them were incited or promised that the court is going to throw this thing away. They shouldn't apply. And I suspect now that the judgment is not coming and the day is nearing, many of them are getting uncertain about this promise that they were given. And I suspect that's why they are starting to apply. When they realize the time, the closing the date is coming nearer, and all of a sudden, from the beginning of May, just a month before the expiry, we start seeing this avalanche of applications. I suspect people are now seeing the reality.
Minister, I really appreciate the time. Thank you. The Home Affairs Minister, Dr. Motsoaledi, with you this afternoon. Well, lots of conversations, I'm sure, around that. More news to come.